morning, everybody. It's July 15th. Mid-July. It's Tuesday. And the Supreme Court, would you believe, as it should, has approved the administration's ability to trash the education department. So that's what it's doing. 1,400 education department employees are about to get their walking papers, and the Trump administration is going to downstream the funding to the states, but then properly administer their own education. They all have education departments anyway. It was a duplication, and it was a waste of money. So we're spending, in the industrialized world, we're spending more per pupil than any other country, and the educational scores are the worst for years. So that's the end of that. He promised it. He campaigned on it. And he's going to deliver on that. And of course, there are 15 northern states that are suing the administration over it, which they'll lose. They're going to lose that battle because they just are. Inflation rate is at 2.7%, which is a whole lot better than 9%. The price of eggs is down where it belongs. Yeah. All right. I've had these things handy for a couple of days, and I wanted to, I don't know if you've, this is a bigger box so you can see. You see that right there? Nice Lumify. There's two versions of Lumify. We've been using this for years. Nice little bottle. 7.5 milliliters. Little tiny bottle. In a little tiny box. A drop of this in your eye, one in each eye, in the morning. I recommend you put a drop in your eye at night also. You diddle with your hands and you touch your, if you have pets, you rub your pets and then you rub your eye, and all of a sudden you got a little redness in the eye. This makes your eye feel good. Lumify. Well, Lumify is a brand new It's made by Bosch and Lomb, by the way, which is a famous there you go, a nice shiny box. You've seen it. They advertise crazy on TV. This box slides open like this. It's got a little, like a tray. It's got these goofy little things that you push on the side, which I have snapped off because they're annoying. Because you forget to push the side and you're trying to figure out how to open this box. So to prevent you from having to rip the box apart, this little tray opens up, and they have this four pouches of Lumify in these little pouches. I have no economic interest in Lumify or Bosch and Lomb or any of the subsidiaries. So in here, which I'll open with scissors rather than tearing it. It has a little tear thing there. Nah, come on. We're sophisticated people. They just a little snippy. Now inside here is in this easy to get into packaging. This one went in, it's supposed to be like this. Somehow or other, this one got in there sideways. And so now you have 5 little doodads in 4 packages, so you got 20 of them. You just twist this off, put this back in the package, put that back in there, slide the drawer shut, and then this will give you twist off this little top, which I'm not going to do, and drip. It's just enough for probably 2 little drips per eye. But what it does is it protects you from if someone touches their eyelid or their eyelash, touches the little applicator tip here. You don't want to contaminate the whole bottle. So you got 20. The selling point also is has no preservative. You see that little right underneath Lumify, it says preservative free. So there are no preservatives. That's the thing. But as an ancillary benefit, you got an applicator for each time you use it. Now I'm just going to slip that in there and close that up. We use this religiously every day. I have a little bottle like this in my pocket. I carry it around with me, which makes it nice because your pocket is a little bit warm. And that way when you drop Lumify in your eye, like the nighttime drop, or anytime you drop it, since it's in your pocket, when it splashes on your eyeball, it's slightly warm because the temperature of this little bottle coming out of my pocket, see, is 85 degrees instead of the temperature of this bottle, which was in the box overnight. 72 degrees. See right there? And that extra 13 degrees makes a difference when it's splashing on your eyeball. So I keep that in my pocket. Yeah, I'll put those right there. Lumify. I've been meaning to tell you about that. But you know, everyone has. There we go. Put those scissors back away. There's my trusty little thermometer. Let's measure what's coming out of the air conditioning. Yep. 57 degrees coming out of the duct. Temperature inside here is 68 degrees. It's always a little chilly in here. Excuse me 1 minute. Well, 10 seconds. Will I take care of my nose? I'm allergic to everything. I've been allergic to everything ever since I'm 4 years old, you know. And in South Florida, with the advent of all the rainy season and the very rigorous kind of plants we have down here, palm trees, palms, we have all kinds of pollen flying around here. Not to mention a cat or two with cat dander. I replaced the air conditioning filters, which are real fine filters, and it removes fine particulate matter out of the atmosphere. And it says, you know, every 90 days, baloney. Replace it every month so that there's lots of air circulation. If you do it every 90 days, the amount of circulation will drop. So the amount of air that's actually flowing through your duct will, you know, slow down by 15%. So replace the air duct, the air filter every 30 days. Costs you $5 every 30 days. Just, they come in 3-packs. You can get them, you know, at the public shopping center or wherever you shop. My duct is in this 1,500 square foot apartment. Plus I run the fan 24 hours a day. There's several settings on your thermostat, and I'll pay attention to Jimmy now. You can have it run fan all the time. So do that. Go to your thermostat and turn it so it's fan on. Now the compressor will come on and off, it'll cycle every 20 minutes or so, depending on what temperature you set. But instead of the fan going off, the fan will stay on. The inside fan, that is. The outside fan will shut off with the compressor, but the inside fan, just turn it to on, so the fan is always running. One of the advantages of that is you'll have, when the compressor runs, it chills the inside coils, and also known to the air conditioning people, the evaporator coils. And the coils that are outside, generally with the compressor, are known as the condensing coils. So you have the condenser on the outside, and you have the evaporator on the inside. All right, so we're going to run the fan on the inside 24 hours a day, day and night. So one of the advantages of that, number one, to pick up all the particulate matter in the apartment, and have, some portion of that is going to get caught in that filter. That's why they have a filter there. That's two reasons for the filter. Number one, it pulls the particulate matter out of your atmosphere in your apartment, house, condo. And number two is that when the compressor turns off, the evaporator coils are still very cold. And this way, since it's the air is running all the time, the fan is running 24 hours a day, it'll tend to continue to flow the air over those cold, super cold coils. So for the next 4 or 5 minutes, you get the effects of the chilling effects of the evaporator coils. And then the coils will, essentially warm up to the room temperature, which will get a little more efficiency out of the compression when the compressor runs on and off. In about a 20-minute cycle, on and off. On for 20 minutes, off for 20 minutes. Then the temperature in your house increases a little bit, and then it comes on for 20 minutes. Now, if you have your air conditioner set for 76 degrees, it'll cycle on and off maybe every 25 minutes instead of every 20 minutes. But if your fan is running 24/7, you'll get the maximum cooling effect of the evaporator coils. And that's offset by the fact that the fan is on all the time. The inside circulating fan. Couple of benefits there. It's constantly running air through the air filter, so it'll trap more particulate matter. And you get a little more efficiency out of the coils, which offsets the running of the squirrel cage fan. That fan is designed to run, get a lot of mileage out of that fan. The outside fan will still cycle on and off with the cycling on-off of the compressor. So when the compressor comes on, the outside fan, because that's your condensing coils, that'll cycle on and off with the compressor. That'll not be affected by your setting the fan to always on. It's just it's just a little tip. So for those of you, which is almost everybody, and particularly when you get over the age of 70, let's say, for those of you that are fortunate to survive older than 70, your body becomes a little more prone to, things like, pollen and all that kind of stuff. So, my suggestion is set your air conditioner to the fan always on. And it's always on for the inside fan. The outside fan will be unaffected by that setting. So the fan on the inside will run 24/7. The fan on the outside will cycle on and off roughly about every 20 minutes with the compressor. And that's the Jimmy tip of the day. Okay. Apple is really apparently games are very popular. Games are very popular because there are things that you can buy with games. You can pay, there's a lot of subscription. So you download the gaming arcade game essentially for free, but then they're like in-app purchases. I'm not a game player, but the young kids, you can see them with their thumbs going crazy playing games. To me, that's a waste of time. But it keeps their brains moving, hand-eye coordination. There is an ancillary benefit to that. I'm noticing on the delayed broadcast here over the networks that the Democrats are making noises about how uncomfortable they're in cages. Yeah, that's right. They're in cages so they can hose it down. They've got there's not living quarters for the next 3 years. Florida has created the alligator Alcatraz, as they call it. They took the president through it so they could see exactly what DeSantis has set up. It'll house, in theory, up to 5,000. They're basically deportees. They're people that have been captured by ICE, and then they're put in these temporary facilities. They're essentially staged in the various of the cells, essentially 8 foot by 8 foot cells. It's got a bed in there and a pillow and so forth. So they want to lay down, they can lay down, they can sit, whatever. There's two, it's like a bunk bed arrangement. You got an upper bunk and a lower bunk, I believe. And, they're temporary cells. They might be in there for 2 days, they might be in there for 2 months. But that's about it. They're not in there for a long time. There's staging areas for the deportees. You got to put them somewhere. And they're not going to build permanent jail cells. This is temporary facilities. They're in big tents. They're air conditioned. One of the lady Democrats saying, "Oh my God, they wash their face where they poop." Well, I don't know where the hell you live, lady, but I live in what is known as one of the Royal Palm Plaza. It's a very modern, multi-family building, which I pay, over $2 per square foot per month. Okay, so I got 1,500 square feet, so it's over $3,000 a month. That's $100 a day. I'm paying $100 a day at least. It's actually more than that. And I poop in the same place. I wash my face and brush my teeth. I don't know what the hell kind of place you live. It may be 3 feet away. I don't know how far your toilet is away from your sink in the bathroom, but it's relatively close quarters. You go to the, you do your business, and then you close the lid on the toilet, you flush the toilet, then you move over to the sink and you wash your face and you brush your teeth. Hello. And it's the same thing in these temporary facilities. They're not going to be there long. It's very easy to clean these places. They have drainage. They've got, so the maintenance people can hose all these facilities down. Completely hose them down. So you don't have walls to worry about. Hose the place down. Keep it nice and clean, so that when the next batch of deportees come, it's a nice clean place. The fencing is all, well tightened up. It's well done. It's the fencing is basically 5 sides, left, right, in front of you, behind you, on each side, and on the top. And on the bottom is a concrete floor. Because this is basically an airport facility. So you got 12 inches of concrete. It's a very substantial floor material. High tensile strength concrete. And the runways, you got 10,700 foot runway. So that the largest C-5 military aircraft can comfortably land on an 11,000 foot runway in the middle of nowhere, because this airport is it's like a test airport, because we had major Air Force installations in South Florida during World War II. So they kept this airport cleaned up and so forth. It's a permanent installation. Plenty of power, plenty of clean water, and it's surrounded on all 4 sides with a swamp in the middle of Everglades that is populated by python snakes and alligators. So if a deportee, it's better to call them deportees than inmates, although we're deporting the worst of the worst first. A little alliteration. The deportees then, so when they end up with a couple of hundred people from El Salvador that they're catching, they'll be staged and they'll be moved around, so that this area is for Salvadorians. That area is for Mexicanos. That area is for, the Congo or whatever. And when they end up with a couple of hundred of a particular country, they order in an airplane from the military, and they'll load them up and fly them back to the Congo, or whatever country they're from. Generally, Honduras, whatever. We can send them where we want, but they're going to be adios amigo. And if any country balks, we'll cut off their funding. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Yes, we'll accept your deportees. Yeah. Some of the countries put their fists down and said, no, we are not taking our criminals. El Salvador, they emptied out their prisons so they could, go on, run up through Mexico and jump the American border. And you can go play bad up there. And of course, Biden let them all in. About 11 million. And we have no clue who they are. There was no vetting done whatsoever. The people that were testified in front of Congress were lying to the American people. And the congressman knew it because, we had, the Fox channel, for one, happened to have a permanent installation of people on the Mexican border watching tens of thousands of these people running across our border. We had border people there writing down their names. But what the hell good is that if you don't vet them, through whatever sources you can do on the internet? Let them in anyway. There was no vetting. They'd write down their name and phone number if they had a phone. Most of them had phones. Half of them didn't. If the people didn't have phones, we gave them phones. Can you imagine? At taxpayer expense, of course. So, and since I'm a taxpayer, some portion of my tax money went to buying these people cell phones. There's no free lunch. Dr. Anthony Fauci. Better dust off some of his savings account because he was given a blanket pardon by Biden, but it was under suspect circumstances, and if you compare the signature on the pardon, it was done by a machine, so there's no clarity that Biden even provided such a pardon. Somebody in the administration, lower down in ranks, decided to give Fauci a pardon, and it was signed by an electronic signature. Electronic signatures are not valid in a court of law in the United States of America. Facsimile signatures, rubber stamp signatures are not valid signatures. The auto pen that's in the president's office, for example, there are auto pens all over the place. There are auto pens in every major corporation. If you write a letter to Apple, for example, we were talking about Apple, It's this multi-trillion-dollar company. The top executives have auto pens because if you write them a letter, a shareholder, a product user, and you write the office of the president, and they send you a letter back, you think it was originally signed by the CEO of Apple? He'd have to be sitting there with a pen, just signing letters all day long. The secretary types the letter, a return letter. Thank you so much for contacting us, and we will take a look at that product and make sure that it is manufactured up to high standards that you would expect from a company like Apple. Thank you so much for contacting us in this regard. Sincerely, Tim Cook. And then there's a signature of some side next to his name. Well, guess what? It was signed by an auto pen. The President, Office of the President of the United States, happens to have an auto pen also, because tens of thousands of little children, among others, write the President of the United States a letter. Oh my God, saw you in the parade, and we're so happy that you visited, Kansas City. Please come back and visit us again. Sincerely, Billy Bob Jones. Well, he gets a return letter from the Office of the President of the United States. But guess what? It's signed by AutoPen. The AutoPen is not valid for official documents like a pardon, releasing people from prison. A couple of P words there for you. Peter Piper picked the pickled peppers. It makes a particular noise in my microphone here. I get aggravated with the P words. So does the amplifiers. And if you're listening to my voice in a fancy schmancy speaker system, we are knocking off the dust, because when you're releasing prisoners, you can't do it with an auto pen. And guess what? The signature, if you look at the signature that's on his son's pardon, guess what? It's not an auto pen signature. It is signed by the president's actual signature. But the auto pen signatures, if you look at them, if you stack up all those, and several of them, and you hold them up to a light source, they're exactly the same. Every little innuendo of that signature is exactly the same. Well, that's what happens with an auto pen. And Anthony Fauci's pardon is under suspect right now, and the Department of Justice is looking at it. And do you realize in the last few days of President Biden's term in office, he signed, supposedly, 4,550 pardons. And these people were released from prison, or their sentences commuted. Instead of the death penalty, they get life in prison. And it is the presumption of some of the heads of Congress of saying those pardons are not valid. The president has unquestionable pardon power It's written in the Constitution that the president has the power of the pardon. It's not expressed in exactly those words, but it's very simple sentence. It's a single sentence, right smack in the Constitution. Article this, section that, whatever. I just happen to have a Constitution right here. We can do it on. Let's see. Hey Siri. In the Constitution, where is it stated about the pardon power of the president? Siri. Hey Siri. ChatGPT. Where is it stated in the Constitution about the power of the pardon? Hey Siri. Where is it stated in the Constitution about the pardon power of the President of the United States? Can you tell me where that's written in the Constitution? We're doing ChatGPT on this screen right here, if you can see it. Enable ChatGPT. Okay. Could you specify which part of the Constitution does the President of the United States have the power of the pardon? Let's try it again. Hey, I have to log in. Oh my God. You just have to do this one time. I've not done. Yeah, there's my name and email. Yeah, that's right. There we go. Yes, it's looked. We've got facial recognition. Okay. Oh gosh, this is like torture. I'll do it. All right. It wants my birth date now for some. I don't know what reason. Just wants to make sure it's me. And no, it's there we go. There we go. That's it. Come on. All right, that's my birthday. Make note of it. That's it. I have selected my birthday. Finish creating my account. I have screw that. I've given you 3 chances. Hey Siri, where is it stated in the Constitution of the United States the pardon power of the president? Search the web. Forget that ChatGPT. All right, there we go. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. All right, I happen to have one here. Let's just check it out. Article 2. This is my Constitution right here. When I go to dinner or lunch with anybody, I give them all right. That's Article 1. We have to go to Article 2. Article 1 has to do with presidents and vice presidents. And Section 5, Section 7, bills, Congress, all that stuff. I'm going through here. Section 9. Section 10. We want Article 2. Whoops. Here we are. Article 2. Section 2. All right, here we go. Section 2. The Commander-in-Chief. There it is. It's in the first paragraph of Section 2. Thank you very much. I'll put my finger right under it. I'll show it to you right there. Right above my finger. Article 2, Section 2. Let's see if I can do a print screen here with this thing. I got it. By golly, I got it. Little Google search. Where in the Constitution does it say something about presidential pardons? And I can say done. Save the photos. Yes, sir, Bob. It's official. And there it is. You can see it right on your screen. Yep. Presidential pardons is detailed in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. I got it right here. It's on page 32 of this little pocket little thing. Thank you, Charlie Kirk, for sending me the Constitution that I can carry around in my pocket. Which people that know me know that I do that. Because everything about the 250 years of our existence as a democracy on planet Earth here is written in this one document. It was created by the original Congress of the United States. And since we're talking about pardons an awful lot, I'm just going to put this little piece of tape on here, and so when I open it up, it'll be right there. It's in the top part of this Constitution, Article 2, Section 2. And there it is. I Google searched it at 9:50 this morning. This clause also includes, halfway down this paragraph here, this clause also includes the power to grant reprieves, conditional pardons, commutations of sentences, remissions of fines, forfeitures, and amnesties. Yep. That's it. I'm going to intensify that just a little bit. And heighten the black. Increase the black level of that. There we go. Now you can see it instead of it being a little blurred. It's not blurred. There's really no color associated with that, so there you go. You can see it right there. I'll shrink it down a little bit so it's full screen. The President's pardon power, P words, the President's pardon power is detailed in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution, which grants the President the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except cases of impeachment. The President cannot unimpeach himself or anybody else. If you're impeached from office, you're out. In other words, so why do they have that in there? So in other words, a congressman can be impeached and removed from office. A presidential pardon cannot undo that. But if someone was thrown in prison for, the violation of some felony, that is pardonable. The president can pardon that person. He's the only person in the entire government of the United States, which is millions of people, by the way, in case you weren't aware, considering all the congressmen and all the senators, all their staffs, all the people that are involved in the military. There are millions of people in the military. If there was a military, action, if, a JAG officer was successful in imprisoning a soldier for some offense he caused inside the military, the president could pardon that person. And he would get out of military jail, and he'd be a free person. Yep. That's the power of the pardon. There are probably 4.5 million people in the United States government, in the judiciary, the Congress, the Senate, House and Representatives, you name it. All their staffs, all the military, the million people that are in the military. They have a judicial system within the military. Yeah. Civilian, we have courts where you can get jailed if you do something really bad, and, violating the laws of the Constitution of the United States. There's only one person that you can get a pardon from, and that's the president. He is petitioned, a lot of P words with this pardon thing, huh? The president is petitioned, is written letters. Attorneys write letters to the president. Please pardon my client because you can see the tears on the letter. Pardons are not granted very often under those circumstances. Not really. We're going to trim this a little tighter because I want you to be able to see it all in my Google search here. Trim it really tight. That's about as tight as I can get it. Yep, there we go. Where does it state in the Constitution the President's power to pardon? Article 2, Section 2. Let's do it in green. I can draw a line right up. That's a line, but can we make that line just a little thicker? Let's go that way. Let's undo that. Undo that. Let's expando it a little bit. And I'm going to draw a nice line there. Hold it for a second. Straightens it out, makes it pretty. Now I got a nice green line. Article 2, Section 2. And I'm going to do it right here. Another green line. Clause 1. There we go. Now we'll do a little shrinko. There we go. Oops, let's do one more thing. Except cases of impeachment. We can not undo an impeachment. Because if you're impeached, that's a body of people. And it has to do if you were an official officer of, like if you were impeached, as a member of Congress for incredible unethical behavior. Or if you committed a felony and you're actually thrown in jail, you would likely be removed from office. You would be impeached, even though 700,000 people elected you, to represent, a certain body of people in Minnesota. You could not be, and you're jailed. Well, you could get out of jail, but you couldn't be put back in office. So, let's say a congressman committed a crime. He stole money from somebody, and he was convicted. And he was serving he was serving out a prison sentence. I'm trying to think of the right words here. I'm not a lawyer, as you can tell. I was trained as a scientist, quite frankly. Yep. The president could pardon you from your jail sentence, in a civil court. So then now you're not in prison anymore if you got such a pardon. But he couldn't reinstate you back in your office as a congressman, because pardons cannot unimpeach somebody. In cases of impeachment, pardons don't work to unimpeach you. When you're impeached, you're impeached. And that's something that cannot be undone. interesting. I'm noticing. Let's see. We don't want to do. Let's crop split it again. See if I crop. There we go. See if I use this view, then we get the full view of this camera right here, and then I would slide it probably that way, and then you could see my profile a little bit. At least you could see, a talking head. So I'm kind of leaning. Oh, there's my microphone. Yep. This clock right here, if you're wondering what this is, with the tenths of a second flashing by, I've been on air here 1 hour, 1 minute, and 43 seconds. Yeah. We're done with that. There we go. So I've got it right in there, and now I have it in my picture files. So you can see the full paragraph that has to do with presidential power of pardons. Reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States. It's essentially, if you get a felony, that's a crime against the whole United States of America, and you're in jail. The president can pardon you, but he can't unimpeach you. So if the public body impeaches you, you're out, essentially forever. Unless you get out of jail and you get put back in office, which would be kind of amazing. The state of New York is getting exercised because Mamdani is a socialist. He's a communist. He's closer to communist than socialist. Everybody would argue. Portnoy says, he's a communist in no uncertain terms on several of his podcasts. Paul Muro, the retired NYPD inspector, he thinks he's a communist. Anybody of sound mind thinks Mamdani is a communist, and for some reason or other, he may become the Democratic candidate to be the mayor of New York City. Now, the Republicans will put up a candidate. And of course, it's not done yet. But Mamdani is running to be mayor of New York City. He's like the CEO of New York City. The transit workers, the sanitation workers, the police department, the fire department, everything that provides services to New York City, millions of people and services would be under the budgeting. Would all be under the control of a communist, in theory. Now, if he's chosen to be the candidate, the Democratic candidate, and the Republicans will put up a candidate. The Independent Party may put up a candidate. You could have 3 people running for mayor. And then in the first Tuesday of November of 2026, Someone will be picked to be mayor of New York City. And it's got people very exercised that one of the world's largest and most successful cities could be managed by a communist. I mean, that's got people spinning. And they're going to be spinning like crazy. And if the Democrats are crazy enough to pick him, and there are all kinds of Democratic people that are lining up behind him, as crazy as that seems. But you have to remember, New York City is populated by a lot of Democrats. And the Democratic Party has become very socialistic. Socialism is one step away from communism, where a capitalistic society, where if you work hard, you get paid more, and if you work less, you get paid less. In a socialistic society, everybody gets the same. Yep, everybody gets the same. But the government tells you what that is. No matter how hard you work, you get the same as everybody else. Everybody's the same. Everybody's going to wear khaki pants. There shall be no more blue pants made and distributed in New York City. So if you're going to wear pants, they're going to be khaki colored, like it or not, or whatever goofy communistic rule there is. You're in the hands of a government that's now communistic, if that's what happens in New York City, which would be, you got a lot of people that don't like that idea. Anyway, so let's fill the screen with, I kind of like this view better, because you get, let's see, that clock is not actually on right now, or Marilyn's got it turned around, so we're seeing the back of that instrument. So we have a full screen here on the, whoops, how come I don't see that anymore? So that's in the way, this little piece of cloth. Let's get that out of the way. There we go, 1 hour, 9 minutes. Okay, so we did the pardon thing. That came up out of, I was just showing you can talk to your devices nowadays. Yes, sir. That's part of my home screen on my phone. And I have on here the very active things that I look at. Like I have my settings, my clock for setting, when the alarm goes off, Amazon.com, my camera app and my Photos app, which I just displayed a paragraph of the Constitution, Photoshop Express, which is a handy little application that you can use to edit your photographs. I use it every day, just about. But everybody's becoming a photo aficionado, because these handheld devices that we have, like this magical iPhone here, we take photos all the time, and then you want to edit them, so you can edit them on Photoshop Express. I have it right here as a push button item. There we go. I took a picture of the moon the other day. Oop, I don't know what's going on there. Messages. Here's my Tesla car. Let's see. What's going on with Tesla? Looks like Marilyn is going somewhere. She is going to, I don't know what her destination is. 3848 FAU Boulevard. It's 0.8 of a mile to get there from where she's at. You can see the route. And she's going right into wherever that is. That's it. 3848 FAU Boulevard. She's 0.4 of a mile away. She'll get there at 10:15 a.m. She's 1 minute away. She's coming right down FAU Boulevard. See the car moving? That's the Tesla has its own cellular system, so we can triangulate on the Tesla car and see where it's going. Marilyn is in the car right now, going to an appointment at 3848 FAU Boulevard. It's a very convenient feature, the navigator in the Tesla car. 72 degrees in the car, as you can see. She's listening to some music. Bertie Higgins, she's listening to. We can turn up the volume. No, we're not going to do that. We could turn up the volume. It'd be louder in the car. Let's look at our last charge. When we were charging the car last month, the last 31 days, actually, it looks back. So from July 15th, we had no charging activity for the 14th and the 15th. We look at that scale right there. And it goes back to the 15th of it goes back 31 days. And you you can see it's like about every 4 days we plug in. As you can see the blue lines. There's some little intermittent charging, but generally every 4 days we're plugged in. Not quite twice a week. 1.2 times a week. And we can tell here, we go further up on the, this is all automatic within the car. The Tesla, this is right out of the Tesla computer. We are looking at computer results. The cost to charge is 14 cents per kilowatt. So each 1,000 watts, 1,000 watts is a kilowatt. So we put in looks like 102 kilowatts. And as I see a little 102 over here in the side pocket. So for the last 31 days, we put in 102 kilowatts. That doesn't seem like enough, but that would have cost $79 if we had gasoline instead of electricity. Gasoline is a form of energy. It can be combusted in an internal combustion engine, ICE engine, If you're wondering what an ICE engine is, it's an internal combustion engine in which it combusts gasoline, or different engines, like in big tractor trailers, would be combusting diesel fuel. We're using electricity as our form of energy. And it would have been $260 exactly if we would have been buying gasoline. So instead of $260, we spent $79 in electricity to buy the kilowatts over the last 30 days. So because of that, we saved $181. Because we didn't buy gasoline, we bought electricity. Oh, there it is. Nice big numbers. 588 kilowatts. So if you multiply 588 times 14 cents a kilowatt, you're going to end up, let's do that just so you can bear me out here. 588 times 0.14 equals, there you go, $82. What does the Tesla app say? $79. We have some charging tips. How you can save money by charging different times of the day. That's probably why there's a difference in the time of day and when you charge. FP&L charges, if you charge it at 2 a.m., you're going to pay less per kilowatt than if you charge at 3 in the afternoon, which down here in South Florida would be a peak time when all the air conditioners are running like crazy to keep that 90-degree temperature on the outside and have a nice, comfortable temperature, in the 70s on the inside. In the case of Maryland, 72 degrees is the happy temperature. I can push the year button up here, and over the year, this is coming right out of the Tesla computer. We would have spent $513 over the year for electricity to feed the car energy so we could drive our 6,000 miles. We drive about 6,600 miles a year on average. So over a 3-year period, we run the odometer up about 20,000 miles in 3 years. On a 30,000 mile lease, that would be an under mileage car. And the car people say, if you drove 40,000 miles, that would be considered an over mileage car. We're under mileage car because we don't get up to that 30,000. A 10,000 mile lease, 3 times 10 is 30. We drive 20. They don't have an option for a 20,000 mile lease. And then you pay 25 cents a mile for everything over. The lease payment would be slightly lower because we don't need a 30,000 mile lease. We can live with a 20,000 mile lease. But many leasing companies don't provide that. So if you turn in a 20,000 mile lease car, and they auction the car, for example. They put it in a car auction. That'll command a higher price. A 3-year-old car, 20,000 mile odometer, that's considered an under-mileaged car. Less wear and tear on the axles and the motors and the this and the that. In the case of a Tesla, it's 20,000 miles of wear and tear on the battery. A little less charging and discharging, and the batteries are 10-year batteries anyway, but anyway, over the year, we have used 4,048 kilowatts. And based on the FPNO charges, we spent $513 buying the electricity to drive the car. We would have spent $1,800 if it was a gas car at 25 miles per gallon, which is, the average mileage of gasoline cars these days. Some super, high horsepower engines will, might be 18 miles per gallon engines, so forth. But the average, the industry average for ICE engines, internal combustion engines these days, is about 25 miles per gallon. And in which case, at 25 miles per gallon, the number of gallons that would have been consumed to propel the car, the 6,600 miles that we drive in a year, on average, you get all these averages, we would have spent $1,800 at the gas pump, based on current gasoline prices. And this is updated, all the time. It goes out there in the internet and pulls down the average price of gasoline around kind of $3 a gallon, whatever it is. $3.25 a gallon. It is up to $4 a gallon during the Biden administration. Bite me, Biden. And now it's down below $3 a gallon with the Trump administration. Why? Because of drill, baby, drill. Yes, that's his favorite expression. Drill, baby, drill. And because the energy industry knows that he is favorable of, pumping the oil that we have under our feet in this country. We have more oil reserves than all of Iran and Iraq and all the, Saudi Arabia, all of that. We have more energy in the United States than is underground in all those sand states out over, in the east of us. Canada's got a lot of natural resources also. We buy 42% of our oil. Most people don't realize this, but we import 42% of what we need to supply the industries of the United States and our gas pumps. 42% of our gallons are provided by Canadian oil. Most of you don't know that. So the trade agreements between the United States and Canada exclude All the tariffs, Trump keeps banging everybody over the head with the tariffs to try to make a good deal for the American, manufacturers that are trying to sell, products into the Canadian customers. Canada is very tough. They have very high tariffs on our stuff. And we have had no tariffs on their stuff. Well, not anymore. We're getting at least 10% from everybody. Everybody. And billions of dollars are rolling into our treasury from foreign countries that are selling products to American consumers. So you can call it what you want. It's a form of a tax in a sense. But that money is coming into our treasury to help balance our budgets. And with the dismantling of the College of Education, because the Supreme Court said, hey, you elect the president, he runs the administration, and he can basically eliminate the Department of Education. And he's doing it. Now he's still going to finance. There's still federal dollars that is going to be spent for education, but it's going to be funneled down to the states, and they can spend that money as they see fit, because they're closer to their students than the federal government is, with their one-size-fits-all that goes all across the United States. And this way, everybody, let's see, how's Marilyn doing? Did she get to her location? Now what is she doing? She is now going back to work. So apparently she went there to pick up something or to drop something off to a bank client. That's my guess. She ran an errand. She probably dropped off something to documents, or maybe a very important bank customer needed a cashier's check. Could you please deliver? I don't know. Someone's out. Someone's driving our Tesla. It may not be Marilyn, but she's right now. We can see she's right at this intersection. Can you believe it? She's stopped right there waiting for the light to change so she can buzz back to because what we have in there? Navigating back to work. And that's very handy sometimes because, getting all these interchanges and getting the right, and she's at a stoplight right now, right there. There she goes. Light's green. And we get to the right scale here. Anyway, so she's going back to work. She's not using the navigator this time. Or turned it off or whatever. We can see where she is. An amazing thing about the Teslas, you can follow them on your app. If you have several cars, it'll show several cars on here. Yeah. Or you can pick the car. And we just looked at charge stats. All these figures come from a tab called charge stats. And since we were there, I'm going to put it back to month. We look at the monthly view more than the annual. Service, it doesn't need any service, which is kind of amazing, isn't it? There's nothing to do. There's no oil filter. There's no oil changes. The motors and the axles and everything is all a complete sealed system, those electric motors. Good for like 1 million miles. So our mere 20,000 miles that we'll drive the car, guess what? There's no oil or oil filter. We had our first Tesla 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, starting in 2021. We got our first Tesla Model Y. Drove it 20,000 miles in 3 years. You know how much money and how much time we spent in the service department? Zero. None. There was nothing to do. I actually visited the service department after about 2 years, and I met with the service guy, and I said, this is my first Tesla. I've got about 12,000 miles on it in 2 years now. I said, am I supposed to be coming in for regular checkups of some kind? He says, no, not really. We have a computer. Everything's computer with Tesla. The onboard computer in your car manages everything. And if something pops up, the computer will tell you to come to service. I'm looking at your car right now because my computer is talking to your computer while I'm talking to you. Our computers are talking to each other, and your car's in great shape. It doesn't need anything. Everything is nominal. It's nominal this and nominal that. You're right. Everything is working exactly the way it's supposed to. So there really is no reason for you to be here. I said, yeah, no, I was just checking in with you because I know none of these lights nothing has popped up in the last 2 years, and I just wanted to make sure that if I was supposed to be doing something, let me walk around and see your tires. Sometimes tire rotation, because, that's outside the purview of the computer. The computer tells us that they're properly inflated, and tire wear looks perfectly normal. So you don't need to rotate your tires either. Everything's good. Sir, you're in great shape. You drive very carefully, and, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong, with any of your mechanical systems, your electrical systems. Everything else are sealed systems. So there's nothing to do for you. Have a great day. That was the end of that, huh? They have roadside assistance. You can push that button. You have a flat tire of an accident. That can happen. Are there drivability concerns? Anything to do with your battery charging? Cable will not release. I do have a beef with Tesla. The cables are barely up to spec. They get hot. They get hot. They get almost too hot to handle. I don't like it. They're not engineered very well. They need more. They need a higher gauge of copper between the charger and the car, because that cable is too hot, in my humble opinion. So that's my bitch with Tesla. Their cables are what I would call not really up to spec. Marilyn is back at 5000 Glades Road. Is parked in her normal parking place. The second parking place right there. She's parked right there. I know that's her favorite parking place right there. And she goes there every time. There can be open spaces anywhere else. Even close to the front door, she'll park right there anyway. Because that's her favorite place. Yep. And I have the satellite view of her buildings. There are the two. She's in that Seacoast Bank building. So now you're getting a chance to see the Tesla app. It tells you everything about the car. It's parked. We got 138 miles worth of range. You know, the fuel gauge. I can touch it right there. 49%. You know, if the fuel meter is at 49%, if you're into meters. I'm more into range nowadays because I've gotten, very used to the car and the, putting energy in the car by plugging it in. It's really, it is different. I haven't been to a gas station in 5 years. Touching and getting all the, the smell of the gasoline and, you have to go somewhere. Yeah, I park right where I live. I just plug it right in. Right in my parking place, I got a plug right there. The Good Doctor. Someone that I know, one of my neighbors, used to drive a Tesla. And he paid a few extra dollars and brought some power right down a column right next to his parking place. And when he got himself a Genesis car, which is gasoline, I said, hey, how about you and I switch parking places? I have a marvelous parking place. And you have a parking place that has power on it. Ooh, so a little blue notice came up here. Yeah. I turned off my full self-driving this morning. I canceled it. You can see it right there. I still have full self-driving until the 19th of July. So I got 4 more days, and then I'm going to be off of the full self-driving. I turned it on because we were going up to Titusville, because we went up to Titusville back and forth. And you can just put the address right in there. Whoosh, the car drives right up there. It makes all the turns for you. It's really quite amazing. You can turn it on and turn it off. It costs you $100 for the month. So now we don't have any road trips, in the next 30 days. So I turned it off. And it's supervised. You have to, it's not full self-driving where, the municipalities have approved it, or Tesla has approved it. The software is like perfect. We went up, we went back. We did every time I drive somewhere. I use it just to see how it works. It works perfectly. It drives. The sensation of driving is just like I would drive the car. It's actually quite amazing. I'm impressed. Last year and the year before that, it was nervous. It was jerky. It didn't make any mistakes, but it just didn't drive like a human would drive. It drives, very robotically. It accelerated too fast. I don't mean it didn't go faster than the speed limit, but it pushed on the accelerator pedal more than I would have. For example, I don't have to race up to a red light. Yeah, I just gently go up to a red light, and it would brake too hard, when it's coming to a stop, it would just, it would brake too hard. It would wait too long before it started applying the brakes. I would apply the brakes a little earlier in that progression. And now the car drives like I drive the car. No, I don't know whether the computer remembers how I drive. I mean, I don't speed through turns. I'm relatively conservative. I just get from here to there. I'm not into how fast the car will go, or how, press the pedal all the way down to see how I can get to 0 to 60 in the fewer number of seconds, which is wear and tear on the tires, because all that stress from the motors is causing more friction on the pavement. So there's frictional concerns. You'll consume more rubber on your tires with that kind of driving. If you speed through turns, that eats up tires. You don't accelerate in the turn, you accelerate out of the turn. You have enough energy to get up to speed before you turn, and then you accelerate out of the turn. And that conserves as much rubber as possible on your tires. If you accelerate in the turn, then you're throwing the weight of the car against the pavement, but you're changing direction, you're adding more friction, and you're going to consume more rubber. Yeah, it's harder on the pavement and it's harder on the rubber. And when you're driving a lease car, if you can conserve the rubber, then you don't have to replace the tires when you turn the car in. I turned the car in, I didn't have to change tires. The tires look like they're brand new. You'd never know there were 20,000 miles on those tires. They were, phew, boy, magnificent. The way the car is engineered so the tires don't work against each other. The camber and the caster. The way the tires, they're not set like this running against each other. They're not set like this running against each other. They're set straight ahead. And they're angled properly. The suspension is very stable. Even though you hit bumps here and there when you're riding, the wheel stays firmly in place. It doesn't get knocked out of alignment, is the term. So that the wheels stay in alignment, and the tires last longer if your car stays in alignment. That's as simple as that. Anyway, so we are going to be without the full self-driving, because it works perfectly, I will tell you that. The car has autopilot, so you can put your address in, but you have to drive the car. You got to make the turns and everything. With the full self-driving, the car will do the turns for you. It'll make all the turns. It'll keep it right smack in between the lanes properly. So you'll be running right down the middle of the lanes wherever you drive when you have full self-driving activated, which is one click down on, the arms that come out of the base of the steering wheel. So the right-hand column, you just push that down, one click, and that activates full self-driving. If your car has full self-driving, or if you pay, the monthly subscription charge. So, I mean, it costs about $8,000. If you want the full self-driving in your car, it costs you $8,000. Then you don't pay a monthly charge. Well, to me, that makes no sense at all if you're leasing the car. Now, if you're buying the car, you know, that's one thing. Tesla is most everybody that I've talked to so far. If you own a Tesla and you basically turn it in and get a new Tesla, they'll transfer the full self-driving to the new car from the old car. So when you get rid of the old car, the full self-driving doesn't go with it. In other words, so they basically turn off full self-driving in that car and turn on full self-driving on the new car. They've done that to everybody that I've spoken to. I mean, they would have to. I mean, that should be like part of their policy. You know, you buy full self-driving and you turn in your old car, we're going to transfer that service to the new car. I mean, that'd be nuts if they didn't. You know, they'd be sued, prosecuted, and, you know, that's crazy. It's a software thing. It's a software switch. When I turn on full self-driving, it's a software switch. As soon as I pay the monthly charge, I got full self-driving for the month. And I just leave it. If I don't do anything with it, it renews every month. And I got full self-driving. And I pay a monthly charge. If I kept it on, you know, it's 3,600 hours. So in 2.5 years, it would have been $8,000. But I don't have it on every month. I just have it on when we're going to take a road trip. Because, you know, you got a 2 or 3 hour road trip. It'll take you right there. It keeps it. It does the speed. If you know, it takes care of traffic. If you got a slow truck in front of you, it'll look out. It'll automatically go in the left-hand lane, past the slow-moving car, and go around and put itself back in the right-hand lane. It does it all automatically. It puts the turn signals on. It's got cameras that looks in every direction to make sure you're not pulling over into a car, you know, causing an accident. So stop and go traffic, it'll stop and go. It does it all automatically. So whenever we do, you know, if we're ever going on a road trip where we're going to be on a highway for 2 or 3 hours, I turn on the full self-driving. It's like a little safety feature. And it's a lot less wear and tear on the driver, I'll tell you. When you're just managing the software, and it'll keep the car right smack in the middle of the lane. And if you want to go 75 miles an hour, it'll go 75 miles an hour. And if the car in front of you slows down a little bit, you'll slow down a little bit and keep the proper following distance of the car in front of you. So you got 5 or 6 cars at least worth of distance between you and the car in front of you. So stop and go traffic, it'll stop and go. It does it all automatically. It's got 2 cameras in the front, 2 cameras on each side, and 1 camera going backwards. So it'll even tell you when you're backing up into something. Or not. So, and every camera gets, the cameras get pinged 30 times a second. 30, it's 30 cycles a second. Yeah, that's the refresh rate of the cameras. All 7 cameras refresh every 30 times a second. Now your head doesn't move around at 30 times a second. So it sees everything all simultaneously, whereas you got to turn your head to see over that way. You got to turn your head to see over this way. And, when you're looking sideways, you're not looking forward. And when you're looking forward, you're not looking that way. With full self-driving, the cameras are looking in all directions simultaneously at the rate of 30 frames a second. They're like video cameras with a cycle rate of 30 frames a second. That's I've read that in the technical bulletins because I read everything. If they got it in print, I have read it probably twice. When you buy a new phone and you get they don't even put it in the box anymore. But they used to in the early days of the cell phones. You get a 100-page manual, on how to work that Motorola phone. I have one in that cabinet right there. The brick. I kept the brick as a souvenir. See if I can show it to you real quick. This closet. Yeah, must be down here somewhere. Oh, there it is. There we go. Here's the brick. I don't know if you all had one of these, but this is the brick. And the battery comes off. Remember that? The battery slides on. There's the brick. Motorola StarTAC 8500 XL. This little bugger cost $3,800. It could make calls. It could receive calls. It could remember calls. That's it. On, off, volume up or down. That's about it. 1 watt. Nickel cadmium battery. I had a few batteries. They cost $750 per battery. Something like that. The phone was $3,800. You add to that a $400 car kit. Yeah. Slide it. They had a little slide thing in the wheel well on the left side. So when you got in your car, you'd slide your phone in there, and it would work off the car battery. And the cell signal, there was a little antenna that was in the trunk of my car trunk. It'd be a little antenna that would stick up about that high. And, so that was a $4,000 kit that I got from my boss and myself. We were high officers of the company, and we, part of our employment packages, we got cell phones. In the early days, in 1985, when the cells That was the year when 84, 85, 86. That's when the cell system started. 1985, 95, 05, 15, 40 years ago. That phone is 40 years old. Oh, look at that. Yes, sir, Bob. Yep. That sucker's 40 years old. You know, when these new phones came out, they didn't give you a trade-in allowance, I don't think. But when I left the company, I took the phone with me. Yeah, I wasn't leaving that behind, no way. Yep, my phone number stayed with me. 416-1100. Yep. Had that phone a long time. So when I left the company, so did my phone number. Nowadays, you leave the company, you leave your phone, you turn your phone and your computer's in when you leave the door. Well, I work for a small private company, and I left. I resigned, actually, when I left that company. There was a little shenanigans going on, and I wasn't going to be part of the shenanigans. We'll leave it at that unscientific term. Yep, what the heck? A New Zealand seal is surfing, just like a person would with a surfboard. That was quite a video. Wow. In New Zealand, the seals are surfing. I have never seen that image before. Interesting. The seal is having fun in the oceans of New Zealand. You know where New Zealand is? It's about that far from Australia. Well, on a globe, that's about 650 miles. If you take a plane ride from New Zealand to, what do you call it? Sydney, Australia. That's an hour and a half ride in an airplane, 2-hour ride in an airplane, jet. Yeah, by the time you have the runway and the this and that, it's a 3-hour jaunt between New Zealand, and of course it depends on where you are in New Zealand, because it's a long, skinny island. Australia is a big. It's a continent. It's actually considered a continent. It's so big. New Zealand is an island. Australia is a continent. And an Aussie accent, has a little British type of an accent. Because I think the British had something to do with settling that area. So they have a British kind of an accent. I'm not an accent specialist. My mother was a linguist, and she had a friend who knew just what I'm speaking about. He could tell you within 50 miles of where you spent a lot of your life, where you grew up, whatever. The first 15 years of your life, you learn how to speak your language. Presumably, your parents, your school teaches you how to speak and read and write and all that. And if you go to the academia, you know, first grade, second grade, third grade, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. You go through the 12 grades of school, middle school, high school, elementary school, you know. And when I grew up, it was grades 1 through 7 were considered elementary school. And then middle school was 8 and 9. No, let's see, how did that work? 1 through 6. Class years 1 through 6 was elementary school. And then 7 and 8 was middle school. And then 9, 10, 11, 12 was considered high school. Yeah, it's 4 years in high school, 2 years in middle school, and 6 years in elementary school. That's how it was when I went to school. I understand, as years went on, that middle school encompassed 3 grade levels. It was like 6, 7, 8, or 7, 8, 9. You know, different school systems in different cities and states might arrange that a little differently. But up there in the north shore of Long Island, which is where I essentially went to grades 1 through 12, the first 6 years was in elementary school, 7 and 8 was middle school, and 9, 10, 11, 12 was high school. The Hochschule. In the early days of Europe, when you got done with the 8th grade, that's all the schooling that you were required to go to. And then you could, then you wouldn't have to go to school anymore, because you'd be like 15 or 16 years old, and then you can go out and, learn how to be a plumber, or you could learn how to be an electrician, or you could, pick up a hammer and be a carpenter, or you could dig or pull or saw, whatever, work in a warehouse, make deliveries, whatever. And then if you were more academically oriented, you could go to the Hochschule, which is, like in Germany, the high school. Here in the United States, you got to go to 12 years of school. All these municipalities were charged with that responsibility. And, you could drop out, I guess. But they had dropouts. But that was the exception to the rule. The rule was everybody goes right through 12th grade. Now, you might be a dummy that just sit there and does nothing, which is, I remember seeing, some kid in the back of the class. He wouldn't pay attention. He didn't care. He didn't give a crap about his grades or any of that kind of stuff. That's not how I was brought up. But boy, it was a very competitive thing, and you studied to get the. It wasn't a matter of beating the next person. It was a matter of doing good for yourself. You wanted to get an A on the paper. You didn't want to get a C minus, with sloppy penmanship. You learned how to write. Now, I was a left-handed person, so my handwriting was not the best because, you're pushing the pen like against the grain. A right-handed person, you're dragging the pen across the paper, and your pen or your pencil would be at an angle that was convenient for the paper. Whereas a left-handed person, they're pushing the pen, into the grain of the paper. So when I wrote, I just arranged my hand so it was straight up and down. Most right-handed people, when they hold the pen, it's at a 45-degree angle, let's say. And they're basically dragging, when they write, cursively writing or whatever kind of writing, the pen is at an angle that is convenient for the application of the ink or the pencil on the paper. Left-handed person can't do that. They're pushing into the grain of the paper. So most lefties, now I don't know of a lefty that bends their hand all the way backwards to have a 45-degree angle that way. Some lefties would turn their hand, they'd write like this so that they could pull the paper. I never did that. I wrote straight up and down. But you'll see some lefties, they write all the way around this way so they can drag the... Interesting. I never did that. I just turned my hand straight up and down so I could push my handwriting across the page without ripping the paper or breaking the point on my pencil, or then it came the ballpoint pen. Remember that? We still have them today. Whoops. You push the button, that's a ballpoint pen. I write straight up and down. I try not to write at all. I try to use, most people, you just, you get your word processor going and, in the world of the iPad, it's called Pages. I can just pull down on here and type a P. And there's Pages right there. And the last thing I wrote was FAU. That's where my that's my handle for Facebook Live or YouTube Live. This is broadcasting on the Simulcast on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Anyway, so Pages is a marvelous application. That's part of the operating system. You don't have to buy it. But if you're going to search and find other Jimmy conversations, there's hundreds of them, like 450 of them. I try to broadcast 5 days a week at 9:05 a.m. every day. 9 o'clock every day. 9:02, 3, 4. It depends on the internet. But I'm logging in and everything at 9 o'clock. But 9 times out of 10, the internet connectivity and get everything set up, it's at 9:02. And I start off with about 30 seconds or so of our favorite tune here, Epidemic Sound Instrumental. It's our royalty-free, without copyright, and when you're streaming, it's nice to have some background music so you don't lose your signal, and the networks drop out on you. So, music stops you. You want to have something flowing through the pipe at all times. we have a pretty good internet signal. I can show you that if you want. Okla, Ookla, has an app. It's right here. Whoops. There it is. You are connected to the internet. You see that green writing? Okla. This is the app. It's called Okla. We go down right here. Oh, this is getting up. Never mind. That's giving lots of detail about my last speed test, which we don't want to. We want to go speed test. There we go. So the first thing it does, it checks to see if you're on the internet. And if it does, that circle turns green. And it comes up with a sentence. I'll turn it off again. And it comes up with a sentence that says, you are connected to the internet. Now watch real carefully. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to push it. You are connected to the internet. That stays up there for about 2 or 3 seconds, goes off. And you can see the green circle and then some expanding circle going beyond it. That shows you that you're connected to the internet. There's a signal there. And now I'm going to press go. And the first thing it's going to do is retrieve a file to show you the download speed. And here it goes. It pings. And it pings in a 33 millisecond ping. So now it's drawing information from the internet. And the average speed is about 390, 405, 408, 410. So the internet signal is pretty good on the down. And let's see how the upload. The upload should be about 50 or 60. It's getting up there, 53, 46, 45, 25. The upload speed is stretching its way up to 57. So the average speed of the upload is 50. That's megabits per second. That's million bits per second. 57 million bits per second. Upload speed, and that's what I'm interested in, because this broadcast, I am creating content. People listen to Jimmy yickety yackety this is like having coffee with Jimmy in the morning. And you could be listening to me, and you could be doing something else at the same time. You could be on the internet looking at other things. But you can listen or watch what I'm doing. Yeah. Or you can, or not. But I've got about 3,500 friends that still talk to me. And some of them listen to. I have up to 200 people at a time listening. Can you imagine? Sometimes it's 2. Sometimes it's 32. I've had up to 200 at a time. Rush Limbaugh had 30 million. I've got 30. Yeah, well, that's okay. Welcome, see the thing on the top. Welcome to Jim Wilson's live simulcast, broadcasting across 2 social networks. Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And every once in a while I lose one or the other. I've never lost both. Sometimes Facebook fades out, sometimes, rarely, but occasionally YouTube goes out. YouTube is my most reliable streaming service to capture this content, put it, it's high definition television. It's pretty high definition, 1080p. You can put this on a big screen TV if you if you have the courage to do so. Anyway, you've seen Speed Test. How would I rate that? I would rate this a solid 3. Thank you for your feedback. Okay. Let's test it again. Just the heck of it. It's connecting. It's 33 milliseconds. It has the same ping. That doesn't surprise me, actually, because, this is streaming through a router in my house here on the cable. And it goes into a router. And it separates the television signal from other internet activity. So the internet goes one way and the TV signal goes to the TV. And so these iPads over here, I can pick up streaming television. Where the television in the living room, that's mostly a cable service that goes right into the television through the cable box. I don't have a cable box in my little computer room here. I have a MacBook Pro behind me, which manages this program, by the way. And I have a soundboard over here, so I can increase the sound of Epidemic. I cut it back a little bit, so I'm not competing with the music. And it's coming through the headphones here, and I can hear myself, and I can hear Epidemic. And I set, there's a slider. I can move the slider up and down so that the audio of Epidemic is, like background music, so it's not competing with me. So when I talk, it listens. So look at that. I got 450 on the download and 47 megabits per second up. I only need 6 megabits up. So we're going to do it again. So we get 33 milliseconds. Oh, now it's 34 milliseconds. So it's a little, the internet is a little wavy, Sometimes you have a down wave, up as far as amplitude. So it's not a steady signal like you get out of your power plug. That's governed by the, would you believe it? The FCC is what controls the signal that comes out of your power. 60 cycle a second AC current, and the Federal Communications Commission watches over the power companies to make sure the signal is constant. I'm just noticing on the network service here, they're really getting after the fact that some of these documents that were signed by Biden were not signed by Biden. It was signed by a machine, an auto pen. It's like a mimeograph, You can't use a rubber stamp signature, on official documents. In the United States, it will not hold up in a court of law. So if you have a contract between parties, like your employment agreement, it better be signed by a person with a pen in hand, not a rubber signature, a rubber stamp signature. Those agreements are not enforceable in a court of law if someone decided not to pay you or not provide a service that you agreed to have. And apparently they gave Anthony Fauci a pardon against all future crimes that he may have committed in the past. on it for the rest of time. He cannot be prosecuted for anything that he did or didn't do while he was in charge of whatever the hell he was in charge of in the medical field. And he had something to do with financing the disease that was sprung loose out of China that infected the whole world, for God's sakes. And it affected the United States for a couple of years in a big way. And some of the school systems, in some of the blue states, shut down for years. So, Anthony Fauci. So in the wisdom of the people that were running the government, and it was not the president, apparently, a lot of the time. There was other people behind the lines, behind the scenes, almost like the Wizard of Oz. Who was behind the curtain? Well, behind the curtain was not, the person we elected. And they granted, in the last few days of the Biden administration, supposedly run by President Biden, he approved and signed 4,500 and something pardons. And they're documented by pardon agreements that were not signed by him. They were signed on an auto pen. Now, auto pens are used all over the world. Generally, these machines, it's a couple $1,000 machine, right? So you sign, you put the machine, you sign your name the way you want it to look on paper, and you scan it. The machine, you scan it into this machine, and then you put a pen into the little calipers, and it'll sign your name every time you type in the combination. It has a keypad thing, almost like it's a copy machine. And you type in your password, and then that permits my signature to be applied on a piece of paper. So in theory, you put the piece of paper in a certain position, so the signature's at the bottom of the page, for example. So someone's responsible for putting the page in a certain way. Some of these machines will actually print the text and sign. It'll do it all in one step. You load the machine with paper, and if you're sending out 1,000 letters and your signature's on page 2, then it'll sign it on page 2. And it'll go through all the, all 1,000, 2,000 pages come out of the machine. And every other page will have your signature on it, right where it's supposed to be. It's like a fancy word processor. And it will sign it, in blue ink. If you put a blue ink pen into it, you can put a red ink, you can put a purple pen in there, and it'd be purple ink. But facsimile signatures are not enforceable in the United States of America. So therefore, there's a question on whether those pardon agreements are valid, because Biden didn't actually sign them. Now the president has the right of pardon. Apparently this conversation has started with pardons, and it's ending with pardons. And we can go right there. Oops. Yeah. We can go right here. right where we were a while ago. The presidential pardon power is detailed in Article 2, Section 2, the first clause. The president has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. The pardon power does not permit you, the president, to undo an impeachment. If you're impeached, you're impeached. And that's a process within government to remove someone from office for unethical behavior or whatever reason you were impeached. Now, if you're impeached, like they did with President Trump in his first term, they impeached him twice, but he was never removed from office. Impeachment, we have a House and a Senate. We have two bodies, two governmental bodies, the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Now, the House of Representatives is the one that creates the impeachment. And that's like the indictment. That's the functional equivalent as being indicted. So impeached, when you're removing someone from office, you're indicted first, which means you did X and therefore we're indicting you to be thrown out of office. Then it goes to the Senate, and they hold a hearing. And the Supreme Court administers that hearing. That's the judge. The Supreme Court is the judge. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court serves as the judge for the removal of a president, for example, which the Democratic Congress and the Democratic Senate, for that matter, tried to remove Trump from office and failed twice. They failed twice. They could not get enough votes in the Senate to remove him from office. So the House of Representatives causes the impeachment case to be referred to the Senate for the actual trial. And as it turns out, during an impeachment procedure, the Senate, the senators in the Senate, which must attend, it's mandatory attendance, they vote. In other words, they're the jury. So the Supreme Court Justice is the judge. And the senators, all of them, become the jury when they listen to the case being presented for impeachment. And you have a committee of attorneys, that defend. You have defense counsel and you have the plaintiff's counsel. So you've got a panel of attorneys that are trying to prosecute you for being thrown out of office. And then you've got a panel of attorneys that put on the defense on why the impeachment is absurd, if you will. And they have a hearing, and it takes a couple of weeks. And then the jury votes. because every senator is the jury. So you have, basically 100 jurors because you got 100 senators. And they all vote. And the majority wins. I think it's a simple majority. That's a good question. We'll answer that question tomorrow. Since I've already been yakking here for 2 hours, 31 minutes. You see there right here? 2 hours, 31 minutes, and 35 seconds. 36, 37, 38. This is the amount of time I've been talking. It's now 11:30. I started at 9. I start basically at 9 every morning. And I get down around, 11 o'clock or so. And then everyone gets itchy to go to lunch. Now you can listen to this broadcast at 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. You don't have to listen to it live. But if you want to listen to it live, you tune in at 9. But you can tune in at 10, and then you're watching it like an hour old. But you can listen to any part of this that you feel like. Today, I happen to be talking about, so a good friend of mine said, well, what do you talk about? I said, well, Bill, my good friend Bill, we had lunch a while ago, a couple of weeks ago. And he said, well, Jimmy, what do you talk about? I said, well, every day at 9 o'clock, I have a broadcast and I talk about whatever comes to mind. Actually, I talk about current events. Today I happen to be talking about impeachments. We're talking about pardons. And then I just talked about impeachment because we were talking about the presidential power of the pardon cannot undo cases of impeachment. The president cannot stop an impeachment and cannot undo an impeachment that has been empowered against a certain political figure who is basically, if the impeachment is successful, then you're thrown out of office. Presidential power does not cover impeachments. You have the power to grant a pardon for anybody that has committed an offense. But that pardon is for you. It's not you all. In other words, you can't have a pardon for all white people. You couldn't have a pardon against all black people that committed offenses in the year 2023. That doesn't work. Pardons are on a per case basis, per person basis. You can't pardon a whole group of people. You can commute sentences. You can deal with fines, forfeitures, amnesties. Not cases of impeachment. Anyway, so that's the news of the day. The Supreme Court is allowing the executive office, which, after all, in the United States government, you got the department of this and the department of that. You know, you got hundreds, tens of thousands of people working all over the U.S. government. The person at the top of the pyramid is the president. And all the Department of State, the State Department, you know, the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture, all that reports up through the president and through the cabinet secretaries, because you have the Secretary of Agriculture. Now, if for some reason or other the president wanted to eliminate the Department of Agriculture and let every state manage their own agriculture, that could happen. But right now, we've got a Department of Agriculture that works in the federal government in Washington, D.C., and we have a Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, you know, and that person manages what happens with the agriculture across all our states. You know, the growing of corn and wheat and, you know, all the things, cotton, all the things that we grow in the United States, and how it gets exported and how it gets packaged and how it gets sprayed, you know, with insecticide, and what kind of insecticides are permitted, you know, all the testing and all that kind of stuff. That all gets managed by the Department of Agriculture. And all that is managed by the president. And the there's an executive office building. There is a building full of people, a big building full of people, housing hundreds of people that work for the executive office of the United States of America. And who supervises the executive office of the United States of America? The President of the United States of America. Now, he's got people, you know, that work for him, you know. Yeah, he's got a lot of people that, you know, that touch him, you know, that meet with him every day. You know, there's probably 10 or 12, you know, government inside, you know, the vice president of, you know, you have a vice president. He works for the president, and he has a staff. The president has a staff. So those staff people, they interface with these hundreds of people in the executive office of the United States of America. There's a whole literally, there's a whole building full of people, you know, next to the White House. And if I was looking at the front of the White House, it's a, you know, it's a building on the right side of the White House. At least the way I was approaching the White House. I don't know if I was actually, you know, I don't remember whether it's at the front of the White House or the back of the White House, but I think I was coming up on the front of the White House. And then if you look to the right, there's the Executive Office Building of the United States of America. And if you look on a map, I think it's over on the east. It would be east of the White House. And it's connected to the White House by a tunnel. In other words, you can go down an elevator in the White House and then take a special little train that goes across over to the Executive Office Building. Another tunnel goes over to the Capitol Building. You don't have to go up and walk on the sidewalks. There's actually a little train that goes between the House of Representatives and the Senate. There's a little train that goes between those two things. You get on, you sit on these little cars that are open, you know, and you just go through this tunnel and you go boo, and you can hear your voice echo in the tunnel. I rode on one of those little trams. Yeah, our daughter Robin worked in the United States Congress as an aide for Congressman Clay Shaw, who was a congressman, I think, for like 20 years. Fine congressman, Republican congressman. And my daughter graduated from college and said, I'd like to go to the... Daddy, can you help me get a job for Congressman Clay Shaw in the United States Congress? I think there's a position open there. Can you help me in that regard? And I said, well, yes, I can. And my business partner, because we were in the banking business together, and I said, Phil, you know Clay Shaw real well, don't you? He said, I sure do. I said, my daughter thinks that there's a position available in Clay Shaw's office. And my daughter Robin would like to see if she could get employed by Clay Shaw. Could you help make an introduction to Robin, to the staff people in Clay Shaw's office? He said, well, I certainly will. So I handed him her resume, and he emailed her resume to the chief of staff of Clay Shaw's office. They read the resume. She graduated from, college, and in actually animal science or something. But she knows how to read and write and type and all this kind of stuff and work in an office. And they hired her right on the spot. She walked in with a blue suit, a white blouse, and a scarf that was the United States flag made out of silk. And she's an attractive young lady. And, a couple years later, I met with one of the senior staff people in Clay Shaw's office, because we went up and visited her a couple of years after she got the job, actually. So she was well settled into the position and made friends with everybody in the office. Everyone liked her, She was a very, very likable person. And so the lady that hired her, the chief of staff, he said when she walked in that front door with the blue suit, the white blouse, and the flag scarf, she said, boy, if she can read, write, and type, she's hired. She is one fantastic looking person to have, because she sat right inside the front door of the office. And they like to have an attractive young lady, and that's two ladies actually, in that spot, because it makes a first impression. And you have constituents that come up and visit, and they just walk in. They don't really have an appointment necessarily, or if they do or don't, whatever, but they walk in the front door in order to get to the congressman. And it's nice to have pretty people up front, and, pretty and nice people, that are well-spoken, and, because the staff that's inside a congressman's office, is representative of how that congressman is. And you want to have people that know how to read and write well, because congressmen deal with laws, and they write laws, they sponsor laws, they interpret laws, and whatever. They manage the affairs of the constituency in which they were hired. And each congressman represents about 750,000 people. That's how it works. It's by law. It's in the Constitution. It says there shall be 435 congressmen. All right? So if you add up the population of the United States, which is like let's do the math real fast here. I promise not to take you much time. But this is how it works. I mean, it's defined in the laws of the United States. They don't make this stuff up. So if we have, let's just say 335 million people. Let's see, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions. 335 million, that's the number I got on the screen right there. And we're going to divide that by 435. Bingo. There you go. Each congressman represents about 770,000 people. 0.9. They round up. So 770,000 people. Each congressman represents about that much. So when they draw up the lines and so forth, there's 770,000 people inside that political boundary of the 22nd or the 23rd district of the state of Florida. And you want to know how many congressmen are in the state of Florida? Well, I think there are 30. Let's multiply that by 30. That means there's 23 million people in the state of Florida. Because of 770,000, they do that calculation first. If there's 770,000 people for each congressional district, then how many congressmen does Florida get? Well, if the population of Florida is 23,100,000, we're going to get 30 representatives in Congress. And there'll be 30 districts in the state of Florida. And each district should have 770,000 people within that district. And that's exactly how they calculate how many congressmen each state gets. So if people move from one state to another, they may lose a congressional district, and maybe the state of Florida picks up a congressional district. So I think when Robin worked in Congress in the state of Florida, we had like 28 representatives. Now we've got 30. So we've added a couple because people have been migrating into Florida from other areas like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. People move from certain areas. Plus, the state of Florida is, it's a big, long state. So you can be up north and be like on the southern, it's almost like being in South Carolina or Georgia. There's southern speaking sort of people up in the northern part of the state of Florida, in the Panhandle. Down here in the southeastern part, the accents of the people are more like in the northeastern part of the United States. We lived in Tampa 10 years. They're Midwestern type of people. The people in the southeast Florida, they're more northeastern kind of United States people. It's interesting how that is in the state of Florida. Because a lot of the people from the northeastern part of the United States moved to the southeast part of Florida because of I-95, because the way that road comes down. I-75 comes, from right the middle part of the country, comes right down towards Tampa, St. Petersburg and all that. So more of the Midwestern type people migrated into Florida from, they travel by car and they end up driving down I-75 and they started settling in those areas, so to speak. Interesting. All right, that's the end of my conversation there. But anyway, that's how they figure out the number of congressional districts. That's how the state of Florida has 30 House of Representative people, I believe, is the count. And that's how they determine how many people are in Florida. They first calculate how many people are in a congressional district, and that's determined by the total population of the United States divided by 435. That tells you how many congressmen. It's always 435. Okay? All right. 2 hours and 52 minutes. I'm done. You guys have a nice lunch. And it's Tuesday. It's the July 15th. And I will see you tomorrow morning at about 9:05 a.m. Every day, Jimmy has something to talk about. And there'll be something different tomorrow. We got the United States Congress. We talked about the pardon power. We talked about the Department of Energy and how the Trump campaign, the Trump administration decided a long time ago that during the campaign, a 2-year campaign, candidate for President Trump said, I'm going to eliminate the Washington Department of Education, and we're going to let each state manage their own education affairs. There will be no more. If I'm elected, I am going to eliminate the Department of Education. Buyer beware. We have spent more money than any other industrialized country. Of the top 40 industrialized countries around the world, we're spending 200% more money on education, and we are on the bottom. We score the bottom, the least education. We've got the worst education in the world. Not just, state by state. In the whole world, as a country, we score the worst. Therefore, if I'm elected, we're getting rid of the federal Department of Education because we can't manage that for a hill of beans. So we're wasting money on all these people up in Washington. There's like 5 or 6 buildings in the Washington, D.C. area that house nothing but Department of Education people. And what the hell are they doing? They're lousing up education. They're not making it better. They're making it one size fits all, and it ain't working. He goes, different parts of the country will educate their students the way they see fit if I'm elected. And guess what? He got elected, so the Department of Education, the Supreme Court said, yeah, he can do it. They just came out with a ruling on Monday, and those people are packing their bags. So you're going to see a lot of people walking around with boxes. They got their box with their little private stuff. Oh, boy. So I was a high school teacher for a couple of years.
and I was forced to join the union. There was no choice. You were going to be in the NEA, the National Education Association, and you're going to be in the NEA, like it or not. You're going to pay your $55 worth of monthly dues, or whatever the hell it was. And we're going to help negotiate your contracts. Well, I don't know what the hell they did, but I was part of the union. I never had anything to do with it. I just taught high school math. You know, I was never in any contract negotiations or strikes or anything like that. I don't believe in striking. You know, it's collective bargaining stuff. It's okay that they negotiate how much you get paid and all that stuff. They hired me and they paid me whatever, whatever they pay math teachers back 100 years ago. Taught high school math in South Florida. All righty. You all have a great day. See you tomorrow.